Conscious Giver in Chief, and we are launching the Conscious Giving Guide. I'm so excited that we're doing it on Giving Tuesday. So we're not only talking about giving, but we're also talking to the conscious givers who are featured in the Conscious Giving Guide. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure you go over to consciousgivingfund.org and you can download and learn about all of these wonderful individuals. So this is actually one of the first. This is our second conscious giving guide, but I was trying out a new practice. I actually want conscious givers in that are featured in the guide to start referring other conscious givers. So this individual is someone that was referred by a conscious giver from the 2019 Giving Guide. I believe the conscious givers hang out in a circle. And so when I was talking to him, immediately she came to mind. So I think that that is pretty awesome that that was the person that came to mind. And as I interacted with her via email, I realized that she was very awesome. And you will learn as you read about her in the Conscious Giving Guide. So let me welcome Loretta Little. Loretta, so nice to have you.
So nice to see you.
So I probably will sing a couple of times because something right now connects with you, and the vibration is all music. So I just interviewed the artist that is our theme song for the Conscious Giving Guide, and I didn't even sing to him. So it's something with you that makes me want to sing. But thank you so much for agreeing to be in the guide and then to be in the video today. So I really appreciate it. I think that, one of the things that stood out to me the most is that you had featured the Asian Counseling and Referral Service as your featured organization. And I'm for almost 2 decades have been, fundraising. And when I saw your responses, I was just like, this is like your dream board member. She is selling the organization. She knew exactly what needed to be said. I was like, oh, she can close deals. And then I realized that, that you also fund organizations. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Okay. But there was really clearly passion that you had for the organization. So could you tell us a little bit more about it and how you actually was connected, your first connection with them?
Well, the organization is 47 years old, and I joined as a board member in 2012. And I have served 3 consecutive 3-year terms, and this year is my last year. So after December, I'm moving off the board, and they'll be recruiting new board members, and hopefully, maybe they'll invite me back in a couple of years. But that's just 3 years. 3 3-year terms is the max, and then people need to take a break. So, but I have just loved the organization since I learned about it, and I'd love to tell you more.
Let me tell you, no one says that. This is no one says, I've been on for 9 years and I have to take a break, but I want to come back. That is like a dream. Oftentimes you can actually, people don't need to tell you how long they've been on board. So you can just see how they interact and you're like, oh, they're exhausted. So they are ready to go, but they haven't told the organization, but they're still hanging around. So I hear you and I'm just like, oh, how awesome is this? So tell me a little bit about some of the core programs that the organization does. And I guess we can kind of frame it. If we could start with pre-COVID, because when the world, we knew the world as it was.
Right. Well, so when I was introduced to the organization and asked if I would consider being on the board, a couple of the things that really piqued my attention or my interest were the mission and the communities that they serve, the programs, and then their byline or their motto, which at the time was hope and opportunity in over 40 languages. And so the company or the organization was started to promote social justice and well-being and empowerment in the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, as well as underserved communities, and that includes refugees, immigrants, and American-born. They have over 200 staff. They're all culturally competent. As I said, they speak many languages. They've got 14 major programs, a lot of other programs that I love. There's a young men's film group where they meet and they make films about things that touch their heart. And one of them one year won an award. It's just a wonderful group. There are several programs that really are the ones I love the most. I probably shouldn't say that because I like them all.
No. We're in a conscious giving space. So it's like you're like, there's intentional, you're intentional. You know what your passion is, it matches it, and it's okay. This is the safe zone.
Well, they have one of the largest food banks in the area, and they make available culturally familiar foods. It's open to everyone, but it really, they offer rice and Asian vegetables and a lot of other foods that you might not find at normal food banks. They have there are two major events every year that are fundraising. One is called Walk for Rice, and all the money from that goes to fund the food bank. And so that's one of the groups, but I really think that their mental health programs are amazing. And it was the beginning of ACRS was to offer culturally sensitive mental health to especially older Asian Americans who did not feel comfortable. And for a while, it started, I believe, in a church basement 47 years ago. And for a while, they didn't get a lot of people coming, but then they started offering tea. And sitting and talking over a cup of tea, obviously, is not getting mental health counseling. It's chatting with a friend. And that's how it started. And now their behavioral health program serves over 2,000 people a year. They have over 80 staff in the behavioral health program. They have individual and group counseling. And the thing that I really love is that it's whole health. It's physical and behavioral health are totally integrated. And so they have obviously the counseling, but they have Tai Chi. And they offer meal programs, especially for seniors to come and socialize. And it's just wonderful. I'm always amazed at how many lives they touch within ACRS, but also with all the other programs that they partner.
Yeah. It's so funny that actually, when I went to go look at the organization, the rice stood out to me. It just naturally does. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, mainly on the East Coast, but because I just felt like I really want to know about this counseling referral services. Let me go on their website and learn about them. And it was so great because there's so much nuance. So one of the things that's under the Conscious Giving Fund is A New Day, and A New Day is to support Black, Indigenous, people of color led nonprofits. And the idea is that they're the ones that are closest to the community, so they know the needs, and so those are the people we should be funding them at the highest levels, but it's actually reverse, right? So it's at least in some instances a quarter or more being funded than their white counterparts. So when I read about the programs, I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This is when the 40 languages is amazing. I almost felt like a little overwhelmed, overwhelmed. Like it was like a great, it was a I always call it it's the feeling of joy, because you're I could just imagine just how I've been in spaces where I didn't feel welcome, and it's hard enough to go and still maintain your dignity to go and get food, But the idea that the food could be totally contrary than your diet. I just had a lengthy conversation with this about with Mark Busher, who's in the Giving Guide or Feed the Fridge, and we talked about like, you know, giving people dignified meals. And I saw that and I just thought, this is amazing. This is what you know. The cultural competence is amazing. That's all I can say.
Well, my dad's Hawaiian Chinese. He's passed away, but we had rice for every dinner. I mean, it wasn't dinner unless we had rice on the table. So it really hits home when I see that they offer rice at the food bank, because that's what so many people just link with comfort and home and sustenance.
Yeah. Well, I actually, growing up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I babysat for a couple that was Filipino Hawaiian. And and so there was every day after school, I would go and take care of the kids. And the wife was going to work and the husband was coming home from work. It was like this period of time where they, you know, missed each other. And she would prepare their dinner. And I learned so much about Asian food from them, but she always had rice in the rice cooker for every single meal.
Yep.
And I also got tricked every time they would go to the Asian food store. The son would always trick me into eating something that I shouldn't be eating. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And he's like, hee. And then he passed me like, oh, try this piece of candy. And I'm like, oh, better. but you're exactly right. I mean, I guess that was why I could connect and feel that joy, because you understand it's the little things that when people are in need, where you make them feel like this is a space where it's your home, it's your community, and then you can actually get to the problem. So
yeah. And they have really done an amazing thing with COVID. I mean, to take this pretty large program and to turn it pretty much totally into a telehealth program. I mean, they have had many of their clients did not have the hardware available, and they found phones that worked and computers, and maybe not the top of the line computers, but they have made the hardware accessible so that people can have their connection even during COVID. And I think that's incredibly important. You know, the social isolation, the anxiety, the fear, the blaming the Asian community for COVID that was particularly in the spring. I think it really wreaked havoc on the community, and to be able to continue to provide these services, I think has been lifeline. Yeah. And I know that the food bank, and they have a thing called Club Bamboo, which is a meal service, a mid afternoon meal service, mainly for elderly. And it's food and socialization. But what they've done is they've taken, and that's on site at the headquarters, which used to be at the International District, but now is on Martin Luther King Way. But they made that into the Club Bamboo space, which is the gym, just a food packaging, cooking and packaging service. So, and they no longer have the in-person food bank. So it's all come down to meal delivery, and they deliver over 2,000 a week. And what's really amazing is, I don't know if in every bag, but one of the things that they have tried to do is to include a note, just something like, we're thinking about you, how are you doing? And you know, again, that touch, that communication, it may be not a physical touch, but when someone opens the bag, they know that someone cares about them.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, that's it's so great when you hear about the work and where others might have stopped, like they pushed further and then a step further and said, I feel like a lot of these conversations are full circle. Like we need to just all get together and have a conversation because there's so many pieces of just intersection. The intersectionality of it all is amazing. And before we got on a call, I was looking at the grapevine where everyone's giving and the conscious giving community is starting to come together. And because I was like, I don't want to really focus on the money right now, right? I just want to build the community, bring this awareness and visibility, and and then I'll I'll harass people. But no, I'm just joking. But I looked at the organizations and I was like, oh my gosh, it really is all across the country. This is so amazing. It just like how you pause. I just literally paused and just felt so excited and there's so much that we can all learn from each other because even though we're all across the country, literally we're talking about the same things and talking to you all and asking for organizations that was affected by COVID or a BIPOC-led organization, and yours kind of crosses the between both. I looked at that and I just thought, there's so much to learn from each other. That's what I'm just like, it's so much to learn. And one of the themes that's coming out is, just really starting to have awareness for our seniors. And during this time, I feel like it's sort of both the age spectrum. So the seniors and, the young people are really having a hard time during COVID.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and that's another one of the programs is senior and adult services at ACRS, and of course there are a lot of sub programs underneath that. But it's just a wonderful organization.
Great. So, Loretta, one of the pieces in the giving guide is, kind of talking about, because I actually think it's fun during the holidays. I find that conscious givers give the best answers about their gifts and what they gave, and you talked about your children and your boys and what you try to instill in them, and so I'd love for you to just kind of share, expound on your comment about we pulled the quote because I was just like from there, and because it was so touchy. I was like, we cannot change one word from this because it was just so beautiful about what you wanted your boys to like their view of the world and how they walked in the world.
Well, we live in a community where people are doing well. When my kids, my older son's 33, my younger one will be 30 in a couple of months. And when they were growing up, even though computers were still fairly new, a lot of their friends had their own phones and computers and rooms, and I wanted them to understand that that's not necessarily how the world is, and I wanted them to understand that there are a lot of people around the world that have the same feelings and thoughts that they do, but they might not think of them as like themselves. And so we did a lot of traveling when the kids were young, and we tried to do one trip a year, and we did the obvious ones to Europe, the short ones, but the ones that I really planned and focused on were ones where I wanted them to see people that they might not necessarily think of as being like themselves, but were in places where there's so much change and activity that when they decided to go back as adults, it might not be the same. So we did trips to Mongolia and to Albania and to Morocco. But the one I think was probably the most influential on both boys was we spent part of a summer volunteering in Tanzania. And and it wasn't necessarily us working, it was mainly us interacting with the community along with the group that we were with. So we definitely interacted with the community. They got to know us, and I think the boys still remember people and places and feelings that they had when we were there. And that's what I wanted them, what I wanted them to take away, not necessarily a thing. I wanted them to take away memories and feelings and emotions and friendships.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. I'm at that age where I remember meeting friends in high school, and we write each other snail letters. Like now, you just say, "Oh, let's connect on social media, and we can stay connected forever," right? So it's such so. And sometimes that loses that feeling part. I always think about Maya Angelou's, like you always remember. You may forget the experience, but you'll remember how people make you feel.
Exactly.
And that's how I always think about that quote, because it's so perfect. Because as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, I don't remember things like I used to. I'm like, I'm thinking about doing a very detailed journal because it's just not as not as sharp as it used to be. And even as I was going back and I was reflecting about, and from the giving guide, and I was reflecting on my the experience that I had shared with the organization I selected, and I was talking to my mother about it, and so she was sharing her memory from it, and we both had different memories, but the thing that intertwined was how we felt about the experience. And it was both like, it was just like this wonderful experience for the both of us. So I didn't have a lot of memories because I was just like 4 years old, just a couple that really stood out. But it was just so positive that it just it just impacted us in such a profound way. So I love that idea. I really want to close in just kind of talking a little bit about ACRS, and thinking about the impact that you want to make on the organization, because definitely the intention is there. You've been doing the work, you've been a board member, and I'm sure that I have a strong feeling they're going to ask you. You'll be back. So I just feel that. But I'd love to just, I'd love for you to share about the impact that even compared to when you joined the board, what you felt like you could do, to kind of now, as you're kind of concluding your tenure on the board.
I think more it's been an impact of the organization on me, as more than me on the organization. The board is made up of about 23 different people from very different organizations, and they've become friends. And I have just been so amazed at how efficient and transparent the organization is, and they make every dollar count. And I am so willing to donate to groups where I feel like, where else would I put my money? This is a place that I really know that they will take my dollar and make it count as much as they can, and have enzymatic impact on some of the other projects. And so I just, the group of people, the mission that they have. When I was new to the organization, I would every now and then tell someone that I was affiliated with ACRS, and I was amazed at how many people knew about it. Our administrative assistant said, "Oh yeah, my dad, when he came over from Vietnam, he used their services to learn English." I had no idea. So, I mean, I met another person who said that they'd gone there for some medical help. Yeah. So it's just a wonderful organization.
Yeah, and I love that you said the impact that they've made on you. Yeah, it's I always I work with nonprofits, and they're not usually like the big ones, to do
Mhm.
some consulting work. It's usually ones that are, at a certain level, and they're trying to level, they're
Mhm.
trying to level up, and and it's always like different fires. And I can right away tell, because typically, the work that I'm doing is fundraising. They're like, can you
Mhm.
raise money for us? And literally in the first meeting, I'm pretty much like,
Mhm.
ooh, you don't need my fundraising services.
Yeah.
You need the others, you need some other stuff. So
Yeah.
I love, how you've described the organization and the leadership, because it really says there's a level of sophistication
Mhm.
that's there, and without losing the compassion and
Mhm.
mission. They're very mission centered. Like,
Yes.
what everything that I hear you saying is definitely just so on mission. And that's the one part that, when I think about nonprofits right now during COVID, and what they're, what they want to accomplish is, if you were doing after school programs, don't stop doing after school program. Like,
Yeah.
still serve the people that look to you and trust you. And
Mhm.
so that's always a little bit of what happens in times like these, is like, this is a challenge, and not everyone has the creativity or the fortitude to even say, we're still going to deliver service. And I have to tell you, because I work in healthcare. I mean, I know, doctors' offices and clinics who are just struggling to
Mhm.
do
Yeah.
telehealth. People think it's easy. They're just like, oh, just implement it and you could do it.
No, it's not. Yeah. To try and continue to keep the links with the communities and the individuals is so difficult. But I've just been so proud to be associated with it.
Yeah, and I wanted to end on that note, but I wanted to circle back to something you said, and then also the statement that I saw on the website, because one of the things that was very I'm like in my bubble. Like, when people talk about, oh, that DC, I'm like, no, 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 no. That DC is not the DC that I live in, or how you're
Mhm.
describing. And and so when you talked about, in the spring, when there was a lot of where I think we're slowly coming out of this as a country, but when, everyone, there was a lot of discrimination
Mhm.
and attacks against the Asian community. It, I didn't feel it the same way here
Mhm.
in DC, right? Because there was a different bubble I lived in.
Yeah.
But I do want to just kind of circle back, because there's moments that we have to kind of like, we want to go on record so that we don't forget, and that we continue, that we can do better the next
Mhm.
time around,
Yep.
so we can act with compassion. Like,
Yep.
we didn't learn from 9/11. Like, we are going to learn this lesson.
Yep.
I'm like, we have to learn it, because COVID will never end until we learn lessons
Yep.
of how we need to love and each other. But if you could just share a little bit, like, even like just personally from your perspective, and then also, how the organization for you, if it was, how it served the community with some of those, just attacks and the discrimination that came out of it.
Well, I think a lot of it was just keeping that the lines of communication and the lines of contact open, with the continuation of the behavioral health programs, getting the hardware into the hands of the people who might not have been able to afford a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet or something, so that they can continue to have a connection. If you're in your apartment in the international district, and you're afraid to go outside because of COVID, or because someone is going to yell something pretty horrible at you, I mean, that fear and that isolation, for there to be someone who's reaching out to you and who's dropping by. One of the things they did is they would go by, drive by and yell hi, to windows. And it's just, it's just a little thing, but it's important. It's important because people need that connection.
There was a pastor of a church in this area, and she would go and do in their yards and dance for like her members' birthday. And I just started following her because I just thought that was so much fun. She would play the music from her car, and then and then she had a megaphone, and she like shout them out the house and dancing and singing. And I thought, this is so awesome. I just have to watch this because she's cool and this is so cool. But even watching it brought me joy, and it wasn't even my birthday. I probably would have lost my mind if it was happened to me for my birthday. But yeah, like one of when we were talking about the seniors earlier, I did say that I was like, I've got to do something for the seniors on my street, because it's, you don't really think about it as much, but usually in the summer, I don't have a pet, so I'm not walking the dog, but usually I get out in the summer, and that's probably the one time I see the seniors on my street, is that me going looking at your lawns or outside. I see them outside, and I walk down and talk, and we just didn't have those moments this year, and I really missed it. So yeah. Loretta, this has been so great. I just, when the Asian Counseling Referral Service sounds like a wonderful organization. I am so grateful that Dennis, who was on, made a comment, nominated you, and recognized you as a conscious giver, and then I'm honored to have the organization as a part of the group. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about ACRS. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. So for those of you who are watching this video, or you're listening to us on the Conscious Giver podcast, I just want to thank you for listening, and definitely connect with ACRS. I think it's ACRS News on Twitter. Check out their website, and also follow us. We'll be all month long just amplifying these amazing organizations and conscious givers. You can get the Conscious Giving Guide and download it, or make a donation, and just go to consciousgivingfund.org, consciousgivingfund.org, or you can go to Twitter or Instagram, and it's at co-giving fund, all one word, and you can follow us there and learn more about the conscious givers and the organizations that they have highlighted. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Loretta.
Thank you.